Hi again, all. So, like I said before, I put a post up on social media telling people I was looking for people in specific countries, and I had a huge amount of outreach to now sort through, which just shows me how incredible it is that my friends and family have friends and family across the globe that really want to talk during this time. So now I would like to check in with an incredible human being who lives in Japan. Let's see what he has to say.
Hello from here in Tokyo, Japan. So there's Mount Fuji over there.
Shut up! Zyra, come see Mount Fuji.
You can see the White Mountain over there.
Yeah, I see it.
And so here's Tokyo.
So
Tokyo.
So cool. Look,
Hello.
there's Mount Fuji. We are now talking at 10 a.m. your time tomorrow, 4 p.m. my time in Los Angeles, which was a really fun thing to have to figure out while scheduling you.
Yes, I can imagine.
If you could introduce yourself.
So my name is Shuji Miller, and I live in Akishima, Tokyo, Japan. So Akishima is a city within the prefecture of Tokyo. I am currently a high school math teacher on an American military air base called Yokota Air Base, Japan. And I teach high school mathematics here. So I was born in Japan and grew up here and lived here until I was 16. And then I moved to Gulf Shores, Alabama to finish the last 2 years of high school. Both of my parents were military teachers, and so they were stationed overseas in Japan. And then they retired, and then their hometown is in Alabama. So we moved back to Alabama to be with family. I went to school and got my bachelor's degree at Auburn University. And
War Eagle.
War Eagle. And right out of college, I did my internship at Opelika High School and managed to also get a job upon graduation at Opelika High. And I taught at Opelika for 3 years before I was offered the job to come teach overseas back in Japan here in Yokota Air Base.
Wow, that is crazy. I graduated from Opelika High School and also Auburn University, so it's just kind of nuts that we've never met in person and we have tons of mutual friends.
I'm sure that some of my coworkers were possibly your old former teachers. So
yeah, probably. Let's talk a little bit about what's currently going on with the quarantine level in Japan during this COVID-19 global pandemic.
As of about 4 days ago, Japan has now been categorized as a level 3 country, which is very restricted movements. But that level was assigned by the American CDC. In terms of quarantine level, is kind of is a weird mix because I have to deal with the quarantine level by the U.S. government assigned by Yokota Air Base because I work for the U.S. government, but also deal with the pandemic situation that Japan itself implements, which is which they're reacting different than the U.S. government.
You're kind of living in the U.S. while also living in Japan.
Yes.
I actually am a military brat myself. That's how I ended up in Auburn. My dad worked at Auburn University for the ROTC, but he was Navy, and I went to 16 different schools before I graduated high school, and so I was constantly on the move. Living in little parts of America all over the world. So I completely understand. Most people don't get it, but I do. What were your thoughts when you first heard about COVID-19?
When I first heard about the COVID-19 pandemic, I was under the impression that it was an isolated incident that was it was spreading like any other diseases. However, I was under the impression that COVID was more of a mild flu or severe flu that we were just unfamiliar with, and that it didn't really bring about any cause to worry because it was just we were just unfamiliar with it, and that the majority of people who were affected in a significant way, such as death, were the elderly, and that regular, younger, healthier people were just fine, just like a regular flu, and that the seasonal flu was much more deadly, much more dangerous than the COVID-19.
What are your thoughts now on COVID-19 or coronavirus?
The Japanese country was one of the first places to receive the initial COVID-19 cases via the Queen's cruise ship. So when it first started spreading, the Japanese government took a very quick and proactive action, and we quickly shut down the majority of all the schools, and we were put on restriction and high alert in the Japanese government. And at that time, the U.S. government still hadn't much worry to didn't have as much cause to worry yet. Our schools were still in session. There weren't any sessions or any incidences or reported cases of COVID in the U.S. at that time. So the U.S. government wasn't that worried. And even working on the U.S. government, we were kind of on alert, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. As cases rose in the U.S., me working for the U.S. government, our caution and our worry increased as well as the U.S. worry increased. But then the Japanese government's worry started to decrease because our numbers were starting to plateau instead of exponentially growing like it is currently in the U.S. Right now, my thoughts on COVID-19 is that it is something that is becoming a pandemic, and it is a very large and significant issue that's affecting the global economy. Something that I once viewed as just the regular seasonal flu that's just going to pass and it's just people getting sick like people do is now turned into an economic and social catastrophe. And it's affecting everyone globally.
What do you think is the most significant way that coronavirus or COVID-19 has affected you in your daily life?
For one, because I am a school teacher working for the U.S. government, as the alert for and the worry increased in the U.S., so did our bases worry. And so my school is personally closed and is now switched to online virtual learning. So I'm no longer in the classroom seeing my kids face to face like I normally do. I'm teaching virtually. So that's affected my career. Socially, a lot of the businesses, a lot of the gatherings and events have also closed or come to a halt. Many of the events that I had planned to go to in Tokyo have been canceled. A lot of social gatherings I had planned has also been canceled. Many of the businesses that I frequently visit, they have changed their hours or limited the amount of people that can come. And so my daily life like that, whether it's the gym or a restaurant or businesses, those have been affected. Venturing out to Tokyo on a daily basis, the crowds have significantly reduced. There aren't as many people on the train or as many people out on the streets. I had intended to go to the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, and that is on the verge of possibly being postponed or canceled. And so that's also affected my life. Many of the trips that I planned out of the country or trips that my family and friends have planned to come into the country to visit me in these upcoming months have also been canceled and postponed. So there's been a lot of factors.
You were also saying something about the train station being one of the busiest train stations in the world. Can you say something about that?
My train line that I currently live on is about 30 minutes away from Shinjuku Station. And Shinjuku Station is known worldwide as the busiest and most heavily trafficked train station in the world. It's my main train station that I go to, and it's also the city and the station in which I do most of my social events and social gatherings and meetings. When I normally go into Shinjuku Station, the trains are quite packed, standing room only, and that the traffic and the foot traffic through in and out of the station is, it looks like Times Square, New York City, 24/7, and it's quite busy. As I've gone through Shinjuku Station recently, the crowds have definitely significantly been cut in half, and the crowds on the train and in the station are much less abundant. Even Shibuya crossings, which is one of the a really well-known intersection, where it's a 16-way intersection and everyone crosses at one time. It's quite busy. It's a very well-known intersection. Even that, when I went through it, the crowds have been cut to maybe like a 16th of what is normal.
Wow. And are people in Japan like wearing surgical masks and gloves out in public? Have you noticed that?
Surgical mask is a interesting topic in Asian cultures, especially in Japan, compared to America. The surgical mask that everyone sees is something that is ingrained and a part of Japanese culture on a regular day to day basis, way prior to COVID-19. It is very normal for a Japanese person to wear one of those surgical masks for a variety of reasons. We wear masks because not only do we want to prevent getting sick, we also want to prevent spreading germs to others. We wear it during allergy season because it filters out a lot of the pollen that we have here. And the surgical masks are also used for fashion and is also used for in the wintertime to keep our faces warm. So, even before COVID-19, you'll find that the large majority of the Japanese population wears surgical masks year round, whether it's winter or during spring, during allergy season, for a regular day to day basis, regardless of the COVID-19 case. And so, even now, even I would say it was more people wear the surgical mask, but it's really not that surprising because we wear it all the time anyway.
That is nuts. I had no idea. I'm really glad I asked that question because I guess I actually haven't been to Japan. My dad used to go a lot because I lived in Guam for a while. But I never realized that surgical masks and like protecting yourself from, your surroundings and also protecting other people was a part of your culture. That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting because you can walk into a store and find these cloth masks or surgical masks that have different designs and different colors and different patterns, and we wear them for fashion, but we also wear it to keep our faces warm, and it's just a wide variety of reasons. The majority of Japanese people that wear them don't wear them to prevent themselves from getting sick. It's for either the spread of germs, you spreading your own germs, or for warmth or for allergies, more than anything else.
We're currently having a shortage in America, but since it was something that was already so prevalent in your culture, you probably have a lot of masks.
So we are actually facing a shortage here in Japan because even though we wear masks on a regular basis, people are still more cautious because of the COVID-19, and they are still stocking up on masks, maybe not to the extent that the Americans are, but we still are. And we're also exporting a lot of masks to a lot of the local Asian countries and to our friends and family who don't have access to those masks.
What do you personally think the biggest backlash is going to be, in a negative way, obviously, due to coronavirus or, COVID-19?
The COVID-19 has shut down and affected a lot of businesses. We have unemployed a lot of people, and we have restricted and canceled a lot of events. For example, Japan itself, the Tokyo Olympics was supposed to be our economic booster, and that's being talked about being postponed. The flights being canceled, the flight attendants and the employees that are not working, the restaurants that are closing. A lot of mom and pop shops here in Japan are also closing or having restrictions. And so businesses are being greatly affected, and individual citizens who are becoming unemployed or being laid off or having to work in a different environment are also being greatly affected. And so it's affecting not just Japan's economy or the U.S. economy, but the economy worldwide. Many of my friends have been job searching. This is currently the job hunting season in Japan, and many jobs are not hiring right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Hiring prospects are declining. Many businesses are either going under or not temporarily suspended. And it's just people are not going out as much and people are not participating in events. So the economic effect is huge.
President Trump just, started, talking about calling it China flu or the China virus. I actually worry a lot about the racial tension. I am also personally scared about the backlash that's going to happen for Asian people in general, because most people cannot delineate between any Asian culture. And so,
Yeah.
that's one thing that I worry about. Do you have any insight on that or any thoughts towards that effect?
I think systemic racism is a huge problem in the US, and it's definitely been increasing. There has been a shift in the tension of where the racism is aimed towards and what groups is aimed towards, and that there's definitely been a high reported cases of racism against Asian Americans or Asians abroad in general, not just in America, because of the coronavirus. I think that the political climate that we're in has also played a factor in boosting that racial tension. And um, it is different here in Japan because obviously I am Asian and I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of other Japanese and Asian people. I don't necessarily fear or worry about that in my personal life.
What is one uh, downfall that you've noticed within your community due to the spread of this contagion?
We did initially face that fear purchasing of toilet paper and surgical masks right off the bat, but that um, that declined very very fast. One thing that we have in Japan culturally, almost everywhere, is a bidet, so we don't really have the need for as much toilet paper as the Americans do. So the purchasing kind of reduced. On my military base, we have limited shopping opportunities where they prohibited the purchase of so many rolls of toilet papers and tissues and hand sanitizers on our base. So it's kind of like Little America. So we had that fear of purchasing of all those products, and we still have that problem on our base right now. But in Japan itself, that fear purchasing has kind of stopped, and is not really that big of an issue anymore. I will say that being a teacher, one of the issues that we face is a lot of our students are now being stuck at home. And so a lot of the parents may still have work and they don't have a way to take care of the kids while they are at home doing virtual learning. Or maybe they don't have internet access to be able to do virtual learning, so their education is kind of postponed, or that they uh, are in a negative home environment and they don't want to be home, and their only outlet for a positive social interaction is at school, and we no longer have that at the school to offer. Um, Being a high school teacher, many of my students are feeling the effects of missing out the prime of their senior year and graduation and sports, and that's a big issue that's being faced personally. Many of my students are having a hard time dealing with that.
What would you say to your students, like your senior students right now? I mean, I know we don't know where it's going or what's going to happen. My baby sister is also graduating high school this year in Arkansas and is, possibly missing prom and her graduation, and she's at the top of her class, something that she's worked very hard towards. So what would you say to those students that are at that point in their life and those things might get canceled?
My students who are dealing with the cancellation of the highlight of their senior year at school, it's a really, really sad and unfortunate thing. And I feel so terrible for them that they're missing that. But they are living through some historical events and times that they're going to be able to tell stories about when they're older. And they're going to have many more memories to come when they get into college and post life. And that high school isn't everything. So, we all look back on high school years with a little bit of rose-colored glasses, and no, we may not have that prom or we may not have that special graduation, but in the big picture, you're going to encounter and experience so many greater things. And unfortunately, this kind of event is just a part of life, and it's a really hard thing to deal with, but it's really important for all of us to kind of carry on together and be able to positively move forward and look ahead for a better experience in the future.
What is one triumph or something that you're super happy that you saw happening during the spread of this virus?
A positive thing that I've noticed due to the coronavirus is, especially here in Japan, many of the Japanese people have proven exactly what a stereotypical viewpoint of Japanese culture is. They're very unified and they are very cohesive in their following the rules and procedures and standards. And because of that, I think that's one of the biggest reasons on why the coronavirus spread is declining here in the U.S. We have a political truck driving by.
So what is a political truck? Like somebody with a loudspeaker?
They have a loudspeaker on top of their car and they drive around. They campaign.
Really? That's so cool.
Yeah, we have a lot of random things like that. Okay, it's gone. But the Japanese culture has done a really good job of being cohesive as a unit and really taking seriously those precautions and kind of displaying to the world that we can actually reduce the impact of COVID-19 by working together as a cohesive unit. Unfortunately, that's not something that I've necessarily seen in the US. People still travel and people still get out and people say, screw it, I'm going to do what I want. It's quite funny because my coworker, who is also Japanese, she and I were talking and we were teaching at the American school. It was really funny to see the divide in the mentality when they told us that our upcoming spring break, our travel restrictions are very limited and that we're not allowed to travel to certain places or through certain methods like airlines and cruise ships. And the Japanese side of the faculty was very much like, okay, well, that's fine. We're going to stay in our house and we're going to, just take care of things here at home. While the American side of our faculty raised their hand asking questions on how they can go around these rules, saying, is it okay if I drive there? Is it okay if we go in a group of 3 instead of a group of 6? Can I still go there if I already booked my flight? Well, I already paid the money, so I don't care. I'm going to go regardless. Or the mentality is quite different.
I was having a very similar conversation with the owner of my house. She's Chinese American. Her family, that's of what descent? Her family's from Taiwan. But she was saying that Americans tend to, and historically have been, very above everything else. And so that idea that we somehow have superpowers and can block, like Kung Fu style, I guess, like anything that comes our way, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. But she said that, Asian cultures are very like, oh, that's the rules, that's what I have to do. And she was, she's very pro having martial law come into effect in America in order to slow this and curb or flatten the curve. But I can see that is a global perspective as well, is that that's something that we can learn as Americans. We are not invincible. And if a large grouping of all of our government is saying that it's important to stay home, probably don't go to spring break on the beach and spread the virus more.
And I think another positive thing that has come about this is that it's kind of shown businesses and companies and organizations how to react in a pandemic crisis and immediately. Many people have been forced to make a shift immediately and very quickly on their working environment and their social environment, and is forcing people to break out of that comfort zone and really focus on that change and that shift. And many people are persevering and succeeding through that. Many of my coworkers who are not the most technologically inclined have now gotten this required urge to learn technology and to advance themselves so they can work or telework and work from home. And that's increasing their understanding and their flexibility with being able to function and maneuver throughout society and through our work. And I think many other people are facing that required change that we're going through right now.
I mean, they say that necessity is the mother of all invention. And so, like, this is the time where if it's almost like a prescribed spring break for the world. You're just not allowed to leave. So, like, learn something that you've always wanted to do and maybe didn't have the time. I mean, I happen to work 20-hour days most of the time. So I'm trying very hard to do something that I learn more things that I don't already know, and also things like this where it's just chatting with people across the world.
It's really requiring people to reflect upon their life and what they do at home, and to, pick up a hobby and do new things, or to improve upon things that they've already done, or to catch up on work, or to how to handle isolation, or how to handle these kinds of situations. And I think it's forcing people to grow.
Do you think that you would be able to or want to like say a message in Japanese to Japan / the world?
皆さん気をつけてください。一緒に頑張ります。What that actually just means is like, everyone please take care, and let's do this together. We can do this.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy still doing online classes right now. For math, which, by the way, was my worst subject in school. So thanks for still being there. I'm sure there's a lot of people that wish that maybe math wasn't on the video side of things. But I just thank you so much for taking the time and for getting on here and saying what you have to say about this COVID-19 spread.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really enjoyed talking to you about the current climate and your interest in seeing what's going on the other parts of the world.